Okay, so step two, we are now going to work with mediation. We're using the same data set. I'm going to give you all access to this data set so that you can practice on your own if you would like. But now we're working with mediation. So the new variables are based on a new context. So in this case, Gmail is interested in learning more about why consumers do not always open and read their emails and believe that high levels of unopened email may be related to high levels of stress. So they decide to ask the class for data to better understand the relationship between unopened emails and stress. They also wonder if there's an underlying mechanism that can explain a relationship between stress and unopened emails and are interested in whether procrastination might be that unexplained mechanism. Okay, so in this case, we actually had students do this as well. The variables are unread, so we asked students how many unread emails they had in their mountholyoke.edu email boxes. Then for stress, there was 14 items in a survey related to perceived stress. We combined them. We had to reverse score some of the items and then created one perceived stress score for each student. And then finally, procrastination. There were 9 items in a survey related to levels of procrastination combined into an overall procrastination score. For both scales, a higher score indicated higher levels of whatever the variable was measuring. So higher score on stress would mean higher stress level, higher score on procrastination would mean higher levels of procrastination that that student exhibited. Okay, so now if we are looking at the data using mediation, let's think about this. So we've got, oops, sorry, that is the process that we have already pasted into the syntax file. But let's say now we are looking at which variable to put where. So the first thing we're going to look at is the IV, so the continuous variable or the X. In this case, it's the unread emails. We're seeing if that has an effect on the dependent variable of stress. And we're seeing if that can be explained by the continuous variable of procrastination. So that's going to be our other variable, the mediator variable. Okay, so now if we want to use process to do this, again, if you watched the first video, you saw how we just pasted that long syntax for process into our syntax window and then deleted it, right? But you kept the window open, but deleted the actual syntax for process. So now we still have this syntax for moderation up here. So we can delete that and go back into Moodle to find the shell syntax for a mediation, which is very similar to the syntax for moderation, but slightly different. So we paste it here. You'll see it's a mediator, and instead of a W here, it's an M for mediator. And the model instead of 1 is now a 4, but everything else is the same. So again, figuring out what to put where, we're going to put for the dependent variable, we're going to put stress. For the independent variable, we will put we will put the unread for number of unread emails. And then finally, sorry, let me type this in here. The cursor was on the wrong thing. Okay, and then finally for the moderator, we're going to see if that's explained by procrastination. So now we'll run this and we'll get new output. So you can see this is still the output from the moderation that we did. And now here is the output for the mediation. All right, so what does all of this mean? Now, when we're looking at this output, we can see what the direct effect and the indirect effects are. In this case, there is not a direct effect of unread emails on stress, because you can see that the lower limit confidence interval where it says direct effect, LLCI, is negative, and the upper limit, there is a positive number. So it's a negative and a positive together means that it's not significant. However, when we look to see the indirect effects, so seeing if that mediator is significant, and we look for the boot LLCI and the boot ULCI, then we see that these are both positive. So that does show an effect. So when we're thinking about our data and wondering if our mediator variable significantly indirectly affects the relationship between unopened emails and stress, then we would say that yes, it does. So again, you could come to your own conclusions on how to explain this, but you could say something like, there is a significant relationship between unread emails and stress, such that the more unopened emails someone has, the higher level of stress they report. And again, we know that because of looking at to see whether it was a significant positive or negative relationship. If we had just entered, and we can actually, I'll show you that just doing a correlation. Let's make sure split file is off. Let's go back to analyze all groups, do not create. Analyze all cases, do not create groups. Now, if we were to go to analyze and correlate, and we are just looking at the relationship between stress and unread emails, that would show that it's significant, this relationship, and it's positive, meaning that the more unread emails you have, there tends to be the more stress you have. But again, looking at the direct effect, it's not that direct effect that's significant. It can be explained by this indirect effect, indirect effect of procrastination. So that means that the mechanism of procrastination can explain the relationship, such that the more someone procrastinates, which could include not reading emails, the more stress they have. So if you were talking to Gmail, you might want to say that, you should encourage your consumers to work on not putting off important things like email, something like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is write up some directions on how to do these for those of you who prefer a written tutorial. And then I will give you access to the data set, the blank kind of lab that students completed a couple years ago, and then the answer key so that you can practice it on your own if you would like. And certainly, as always, if you do have further questions, I have lots of office hours this week. I'm happy to meet with any of you or answer questions over email if that's easier for you. All right, best of luck on the end of your semester.